In the MLB, there are so many factors that affect how well you can perform on the field. Luck is often heavily associated with baseball, but what separates the best of the best is being so talented you can overcome that luck over the course of a 162-game season. This is why the path to the show gets more and more difficult over time, as there's so much development that needs to be done to reach the top. For most players, it can be just as long as their minor league development, and nobody should expect to see their peak right away. For many rookies, their first year is the last step of their development to be an everyday big league player, and it can take even longer than that. There are so many players that took a long time to finally figure out their place in the big leagues. What I want to talk about today, though, is the rare players that just figured it out instantly. Guys who came up to the big leagues and shot far beyond just the Rookie of the Year. Which hitters across MLB's history had the greatest rookie season of all time? I started out by sorting through individual rookie seasons as far back as Fangraphs would let me search. If we sort by the top 50 seasons in terms of fWAR, 50th has an fWAR of 5.3, which is great, but obviously compared to every individual season ever is nothing spectacular. To go even further, if I were to remove rookie seasons from the equation and sort back to 1871 again, a 5.3 fWAR season ranks 1,821st. So it goes to show how big of an impact a rookie season has. Now, obviously, there are a lot of variables at play too, beyond just the low amount of experience and high pressure for a player's first year. One of the first ones is just that there are fewer and fewer statistics to account for the farther you look back in baseball history. Fielding statistics is one of the most important. Outs above average, for example, is a very modern stat for fielding, but obviously can't be used prior to 2016. So there may be some variation in each player's WAR, but this is still the best we could do in this situation. However, I think that rookie eligibility is probably the biggest factor at play here that stops people from having big rookie seasons. Once a hitter has exceeded 130 at-bats in a season, they can no longer be considered for rookie awards in seasons after that. I actually have two really interesting examples that help to explain some of the issues players have faced with rookie eligibility. When Mookie Betts was called up to the majors in 2014, he only played in 52 games, and that's because he wasn't brought up until June and didn't really see consistent playing time until the second half of August. So he didn't really play that much of the season, but he exceeded the limit of 130 at-bats that year and therefore was only qualified as a rookie for that season. But with only 52 games played, there was no way he was beating out Jose Abreu for Rookie of the Year, regardless of stats, because Abreu played 93 more games than him. The next year, Mookie played 145 games and put up almost the exact same numbers, but he obviously wasn't considered a rookie. To give an example on the opposite side of the spectrum, Randy Arozarena played in 3 seasons before he won Rookie of the Year in 2021. This is because across those years, he only had 84 at-bats in the majors before his rookie year. Although, Randy also played in the playoffs with St. Louis in 2019, and became a huge name when he carried the Rays in the playoffs in 2020. So if you count those at-bats that Randy had in the playoffs, he would have reached 165 career at-bats in the majors. But since the playoff stats don't count for regular season awards, Arozarena was still eligible to be a rookie for 2021. So it's weird stuff like that that will really affect a good rookie season because the eligibility isn't a perfect system. So there really is such a tight window where a player has the talent level to put up a big season, has the perfect amount of experience so they don't falter in the big leagues, and be able to play almost the entire season. Those factors are why it is so challenging to have one of the best rookie years of all time. Since I sorted all the way back to 1871, there are tons of different position players all across different eras, but I want to highlight some really interesting things I noticed in the top 50 rookie seasons in terms of fWAR. I don't think WAR is perfect, but it's the easiest and most efficient way to sort through the sheer amount of seasons there are because it accounts for all parts of a position player's game, such as their hitting, base running, and fielding. First year I want to highlight is Adley Rutschman's rookie season in 2022. Rutschman places 48th on the list and 8th out of rookies in the 2000s, with a 5.3 fWAR. I feel like it might be a surprise to some that Adley's so high on the list, maybe just because it's so recent, but the Orioles didn't even call up Adley until the end of May in 2022. So he ended the year with 113 games played, and there were almost 2 months of the season where Adley could have done even better. Rutschman had great production at the plate in 2022, especially considering he was a rookie and a catcher. It's no surprise to anyone that catchers usually have below average hitting stats, as in 2022 they had a league-wide OPS of 662, while the rest of the league, including catchers, had an OPS of 707. So when you consider that he was a catcher as well, having an OPS plus of 130 in your rookie season is phenomenal. As for defense, Adley was fantastic. He had 9.1 framing runs saved and 18 defensive runs saved in total. Great offensive production alongside elite defense from arguably the most important defensive position in the game is a big reason why Adley was able to put up such a monumental rookie campaign, even if he missed a large part of the year. I think Rutschman's season is a little under the radar right now because it happened so recently, but he didn't even win Rookie of the Year. A few spots above Adley at number 42 on the list is none other than Julio Rodriguez. It's one thing to see such a recent rookie season so high on the list, but it's also surprising to see two guys from the same league that both played just last year. J-Rod had an unbelievable rookie year, and yet again we have volume making a significant impact. I'd say the biggest reason J-Rod was almost unanimous over Rutschman was that he played 19 more games than him. Situations like that with such similar numbers will almost always go to the guy who played more. Although I think voters couldn't have gone wrong with either choice there, I can't blame them for leaning more towards volume. In his rookie campaign, J-Rod had a 5.4 fWAR and /284, 345, 509 for an OPS of 853. A 146 OPS plus is fantastic in general, let alone from a rookie center fielder. That's not to mention that J-Rod was a great defender in 2022, from a very difficult position as well. He had 3 defensive runs saved and 8 outs above average, both ranked very highly among outfielders in 2022. I really would have loved to see the Orioles let Rutschman start on the team in 2022 because we could have had one of the best Rookie of the Year races of all time. The number 2 and number 3 ranked prospects going into the year, playing 2 of the most important defensive positions on the field at a premium for 2 teams that hadn't seen success in several years. It would have been amazing to see. And in the games leading up to Rutschman's debut, J-Rod was actually really struggling, so it would have been interesting to see how Adley would have performed if he was on the roster for the opening week. Regardless, we got to see 2 fantastic rookie seasons in 2022, and that's not even mentioning the National League. Michael Harris II is not too far down this list at number 77. This video may be just about position players, but Spencer Strider had the highest fWAR from a rookie pitcher since 1995. So I think we need to appreciate 2022 more for being one of the best rookie classes we've ever seen. Moving up the list a little bit, we could see Stan Musial at number 38 with an fWAR of 5.4. Musial, of course, is one of the greatest hitters of all time, and I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on him, but he had countless team and personal accolades, an absurd career slash line, and is 4th on the all-time hits list. I mean, just an obvious Hall of Famer and possibly the greatest Cardinals hitter of all time. Musial set expectations quickly. He ended his rookie year 12th in MVP voting and /315, 397, 490 for an OPS plus of 151. 51% better than the average hitter in a rookie season is ridiculous. I mean, Musial won his first MVP at age 22, fought in World War II at age 24, and then came back and won another MVP the next year. Even guys with unbelievable careers like Musial don't always start off as insane hitters like he was able to. Sometimes you see the opposite. If we look even further up the list, we can see Bernie Carbo at number 32, who had a fantastic rookie season. Playing for the 1970 Reds, Carbo /310, 454, 551 for an OPS of 1,004. Carbo was barely not a qualified hitter, but for players with at least 450 plate appearances that year, he put up the highest on-base percentage in the league, tied with Rico Cardi and above both Carl Yastrzemski and Willie McCovey. His hitting, walk rate, and power were clearly elite, and considering he was a first-round pick, who was actually picked before Johnny Bench in the 1965 MLB draft, I would have expected Carbo to have a Hall of Fame career starting out at just age 22. However, after that season, Carbo didn't come close to replicating that production. He never even played more than 125 games in a season after that. The Reds got rid of him just 3 years after his rookie campaign, and Carbo jumped around teams for the rest of his career before he retired at age 33, which is why I've mainly been using footage from the 1975 World Series, where Carbo played for the Red Sox and had possibly the biggest moment of his career, getting a pinch hit home run against the team that drafted him. So what happened? Bernie Carbo's career is a tragic story of horrible alcohol and drug abuse. A few years ago, Carbo spoke at the Baseball Hall of Fame about his autobiography, which is co-authored with Dr. Peter Hansis. Carbo said, "I was a functioning alcoholic and drug addict at the beginning. Then I lost every ability to catch a ball, hit a ball, and field a ball. Because of the choices I made, I burned so many bridges. I got into so many fights, and it just went completely downhill." Bernie Carbo really put up an incredibly special rookie season, and because of unfortunate choices, we never really got to see how big of an impact he could have had on the league. But I'd say baseball stats are not the most important thing in a situation like this one. Many people have a career of what-ifs, but we know for certain that Carbo had one of the greatest rookie seasons of all time. Just a spot above Carbo is our next 2000s rookie on the list, Evan Longoria. Longoria ranks 6th in fWAR among rookie hitters since 2000 and 31st on the overall rankings. Longoria's rookie year was a really special one for the Rays. Longoria was drafted 3rd overall in 2006, back when the Rays were known as the Devil Rays. He had a short minor league stint, and he started his rookie year in April of 2008. After just 6 games in the majors, the Rays and Longoria came to agreement on a 6-year deal. Clearly, this paid off for them, as Longoria would proceed to win Rookie of the Year in 2008, helped the Rays reach their first World Series appearance, and even got MVP votes in just 122 games played. In the first half of the season leading into the All-Star break, Longoria slashed .275, .348, .513 for an OPS of .861. This led Longoria to his first of 3 All-Star appearances in his career, which actually all happened in his first 3 seasons. He ended the year with similar stats to his first half, finishing with a slash line of .272, .343, .531 for an OPS of .874. Longoria's early years in his career were also his best on the field, as he had 10 defensive runs saved at the third base position in 2008. This helped Longoria put up a 5.6 fWAR in his rookie season. Eventually, Longoria would have better and better production as the years went on, and the Rays gave him a $100 million deal a few years later. And if you know the Rays, they rarely give out big contracts, so Longoria truly was a prodigy for Tampa Bay. Longoria still ranks number 1 all-time in fWAR for Rays players by a lot. I know the Rays have only been around for 25 years, but I still think that's an incredible feat. So let's move through the list again. We're nearing the top 25, with Hall of Famer Frank Robinson at number 30, Kenny Lofton at number 29, and another Hall of Famer, Home Run Baker at number 28. Now, I can't really get footage from 1909, so you're going to have to just look at some random player highlights in the background for this section. Home Run Baker is one of the most interesting careers to look at, especially nowadays, because he was known as one of the earliest home run kings in MLB history. He led American League hitters in home runs for 4 straight seasons from 1911 to 1914. The funny thing is, the most home runs he ever hit in a season was 12. I feel like this just goes to show the massive changes that baseball's gone through in the last century. I mean, less than 10 years later, Babe Ruth hit half of Home Run Baker's career home run total in 1 season. Baker has 96 career home runs. If you compare Baker's stats in his rookie year to what we see today, it also goes to show how different everything was. Baker slashed .305, .343, .447 for an OPS of .790. At the time, though, that's an OPS plus of 146. Just to give a comparison, Kyle Tucker has an OPS plus of 145 this year, while his OPS is 898. So offense was just so barren back then. Baker ended the year with an fWAR of 5.9, right on the cusp of 6 WAR, which is what our next player achieved. Ichiro Suzuki put up one of the most historic rookie seasons ever. Suzuki may have had his rookie season at age 27, but that doesn't change how hard it is to make this big of an impact in your first year when transitioning from another league. I wouldn't say that Ichiro's rookie season was the best year of his career stats-wise, but I would say it is his most impressive overall. He slashed .350, .381, .457 for an OPS of .838, stole 56 bags, which led the entire league, and he also led the league in hits with 242, which is historic. That stands as 10th all-time for the most hits in a single season, in his first year. Not to mention, Ichiro set the single-season hit record just a few years later with 262. If you look at the single-season hits list, you will rarely find another player that played even remotely close to the 2000s. Just look at the pictures for the top 24 that are shown on Baseball Reference. 17 of these photos are in black and white. Ichiro made this list in his first year. I'm pretty sure most would agree Ichiro would have easily gone 4,000 hits in MLB, considering he had well over that in his entire professional baseball career that includes the NPB. Not only did Ichiro easily win Rookie of the Year, but he also won MVP. Fred Lynn is the only other player to do this in MLB's history, and he's ranked 9th on the list by fWAR. In short, Ichiro recorded the most hits ever by a rookie, won the batting title, and ended up winning Rookie of the Year and MVP. So there's no surprise that a guy like Ichiro gets so much praise to this day. His rookie season was generational, and it basically set everyone's expectations high for the rest of his career. I want to jump up a few spots on this list to number 23, who had an fWAR of 6.1 in his rookie year. In 2015, Kris Bryant was basically the final piece for the Cubs before their historic World Series victory the next year. Kris Bryant was just so clearly going to be a big-time player in the majors. He was drafted by the Cubs 2nd overall in the 2013 MLB draft, and he just absolutely lit up minor league pitching. There wasn't a single season Bryant had in the minors where he didn't have an OPS above 1,000 and a batting average above 321. He was easily ready to start for the Cubs in 2015, but the team famously manipulated Bryant's service time by calling him up so he would play just one game under the service time limit. They did this so they would have control of Bryant for an extra year before he hits free agency, but they're still able to take advantage of him for his first year. In his rookie year, Bryant played 151 games, / 275, 369, 488 for an OPS of 858, and unanimously won the Rookie of the Year. The Cubs basically got a free season from Bryant, and he was arguably their best position player that year too. He wasn't the greatest defender, as he had a negative defensive run saved at third base, but it wasn't too bad. He was actually a really solid outfielder. Bryant's service time manipulation may have been the biggest takeaway from his rookie year, as it had major consequences for the future of MLB rookies. At the time, Bryant and his representatives thought that considering his nearly full and highly productive season, it should count towards his 6 years of team control. But despite the Cubs so obviously committing service time manipulation, they didn't do anything they weren't allowed to, so Bryant never had that season count towards his service time. After the lockout concluded prior to the 2022 season, MLB and the Players Union agreed to terms that would prevent teams from doing what the Cubs did to Bryant in 2015. It made sure that if a player were the runner-up or winner of Rookie of the Year, that would automatically award them with 1 full year of service time. Teams were also incentivized to promote their rookies at the start of the season to gain extra draft picks if they were to place highly in Rookie of the Year voting. We've already seen huge effects of this on the league so far, with none other than Adley Rutschman. As I mentioned earlier, Adley wasn't brought up until the end of May, so his 2022 season wouldn't normally count as a full year of service time. Except Adley was the runner-up for Rookie of the Year, so it counts as a full season, and Adley will hit free agency in 2028 as opposed to 2029. So Bryant's rookie season wasn't just a big deal in terms of his stellar performance, which he did do, but it has and will continue to make an impact for every rookie in the MLB from now on. I'd love to get to every season on this list, but we spent a lot of time in the 20s, and I want to take an even bigger leap here to number 8 on our list, Albert Pujols, who ranks 8th all time with an fWAR of 7.2. The craziest part about seeing such a well-known name in the baseball world like Pujols is that he wasn't even drafted into the 13th round. At the time, a Devil Rays scout named Fernando Arango was a huge Pujols advocate. He said, "The ball sounded like a cannon went off. It wasn't even fair for him to use an aluminum bat." Apparently, the Rays did not see the same thing, and neither did any other team in the league somehow. The Cardinals picked him 402nd overall, and almost immediately, he was raking in the minors. The Cardinals promoted him with hardly any games played above single A, and he had just 1 full season down there. Well, Pujols played 161 games in his first year, / 329, 403, 610, made the All-Star game, and didn't just win Rookie of the Year, he also placed 4th in MVP voting. Beyond the rookie season, I'm pretty confident saying that Pujols had the greatest start to a career ever. He just kept getting better, and in his first 10 years in the big leagues, he had an OPS plus of 172, 408 home runs, 1,900 hits, and 3 MVPs. To put up numbers like that for the first decade of your career basically solidifies yourself as a Hall of Famer. But the question after that was if Pujols could be considered the best. Unfortunately, after Pujols left St. Louis, he was really starting to slow down, and he wasn't really close to the hitter he was in the first half of his career. If Pujols stayed consistent, I truly think he could have set unreachable records. But that just feels like nitpicking when looking at the stellar career that Pujols gave us. I want to finish off by discussing everyone in the top 5. The 5th best rookie season of all time, with an fWAR of 8.2, was by Dick Allen. Dick Allen was signed by the Phillies in 1960 when he was 18 years old. He first played in the majors in 1963, but only had 25 plate appearances, which was not nearly enough to be considered a rookie. The next year, though, Allen slashed 318, 382, 557 for an OPS of 939 and an OPS plus of 162. This led him to an easy Rookie of the Year win, as well as leading baseball in runs, triples, and extra base hits. And he led the National League in total bases. Allen presumably had a rough time in the field, as he led the entire league in errors. Since 1963, it's actually the 4th most errors ever committed in a single season. Though he wasn't actually that bad of a fielder, as he had -2 total zone runs, which is the main fielding stat we really have for that time period. Total zone works similarly to the modern fielding stats we have, where there are negative and positive runs based on data that is available from that year. But it's all entirely based on play-by-play data, so that's why it can go really far back in baseball history. Now, was Allen a good defender that year? Not really. But I think the errors paint him in a bad light. It makes him look much worse than he really was. Allen honestly had a really consistent career from then on, and in the second half of his career, he kind of bounced around a few teams and had a solid Hall of Fame case. 351 home runs, 1848 hits, an MVP in 1972, and a great career slash line. There were times in 2015 and 2022 when Allen was a single vote away from the 75% threshold for the Hall of Fame. Unfortunately, the accolades and counting stats may be what's holding Allen back. He was likely in line for another MVP in 1973, but a broken leg cut that season short. However, from a pure talent standpoint, he's easily proven himself. But unfortunately, that's become Allen's legacy. He's constantly asked about never making the Hall of Fame. He's one of the many players that just couldn't quite get in no matter what they do. In 2017, Aaron Judge put up one of the most unbelievable seasons from a rookie ever. Judge first played in the majors at the end of 2016, as the Yankees had partially committed to a rebuild by trading big pieces like Andrew Miller and Aroldis Chapman to playoff contenders for prospects. It was the end of an era for that franchise, with it being both Alex Rodriguez and Mark Teixeira's final years, and the Yankees were trying to focus on the next group of young guys. Aaron Judge had 84 at-bats in 2016, staying under the rookie eligibility limit, and he really struggled. Although he started off his career with a home run in his first at-bat, he ended his 27 games in 2016 with pretty rough stats. But since the Yankees had committed to the rebuild, there weren't really any high expectations for them to make a huge playoff run the next year. With that and a solid spring training from Judge, he was giving a starting spot on the Major League roster in 2017. Little did they know he would absolutely go off that year. Being on such a popular team and putting up the numbers he did, he was easily voted to the All-Star game in his first year. By the break on July 9th, Judge was slashing .329, .448, .691 with an absurd OPS of 1,139. However, Judge really started to slow down in the second half. He wasn't bad by any means, still maintaining a high on base and slugging, but his numbers were far below the ridiculous standard he set in the first half. This is honestly pretty normal for any player, but Judge attributes these struggles to an injury he had from the home run derby. As for the Yankees' rebuild, that didn't really last that long, as Judge's rookie record-setting 52 bombs led them to one game out of a World Series appearance. If that wasn't enough, Judge had 8 defensive runs saved and 9 outs above average, exclusively playing right field that year. Judge just barely didn't win the MVP that year, losing to Jose Altuve, which was controversial at the time, let alone after the sign-stealing scandal was revealed to the public. After that year, everyone just needed to see if Judge could somehow top what he did. In the following years, Judge never really reached those heights again, as he had some injury problems in 2018 and 2019, and a shortened season in 2020 just messed everyone up. It seemed like we may have seen Judge's greatest season right from the get-go, until Judge in 2022 came along. For number 3 and number 2, we're going back about a century before Judge's rookie year, with Shoeless Joe Jackson's rookie season ranking at number 3 and Benny Koff's rookie year at number 2. These are 2 players who were banned from baseball around the same time, actually. Shoeless Joe Jackson will of course forever be known for the Black Sox scandal, where he and many of his teammates were banned from Major League Baseball indefinitely for allegedly throwing the 1919 World Series for money. There were many that believed that Jackson wasn't really a part of it, as he had pretty solid stats in some of those games, but he was banned regardless. As for the start of his career, he only played a total of 30 games, and he spent a lot of time in the minor leagues over that time. Then, the Philadelphia Athletics gave up on Jackson, and they would make a huge mistake because he had a ridiculous rookie season with Cleveland, known back then as the Naps. Jackson played 147 games in 1911 and slashed .408, .468, .590 with an OPS of 1,058. It was one of the rare times where someone hit over 400 and didn't win the batting title, as Ty Cobb hit .419 and led the league in almost every hitting stat. Except Jackson had him beaten on base percentage by 2 points. Today, those stats put up a 9.3 fWAR season, with an OPS plus of 193, which is the highest OPS plus out of all the seasons I've covered. And it's the highest among all rookies that have played at least 100 games in their rookie year. Benny Koff is a really interesting one because he played in the Federal League in his rookie season before playing for the New York Giants in the National League. Federal League statistics are really hard to come by because that league only lasted for 2 years. They're still recognized as official MLB stats today. Koff put up such a high fWAR that year because he had really solid hitting stats and was just an absolute animal on the base paths. He slashed .370, .447, .534 for an OPS of 981 and led the league in runs, hits, doubles, batting average, on base percentage, OPS, total bases, and stolen bases. Speaking of, he stole a whopping 75 bases that year. He's the first player that I'm going to bring up BSR, or base runs above average, for, because it'll help to show why his fWAR is so high in the first place. This stat encompasses everything about base running to determine how many runs a player got for their team, specifically on the base paths. He had 12.4 base runs above average, which ranks 21st all time and is a big factor for why he had such a high fWAR with 9.9. Once Koff hit the National League, he never really got close to putting up any of those numbers ever again. So his season is a little bit of an iffy one for me, and I'm not sure if he would have put up those numbers in the AL or NL at that time. They literally referred to him as the Ty Cobb of the Feds. And like I said, he was banned from baseball because he stole a car in 1921 and then resold it to somebody else. But apparently, like Jackson, he may not have actually been a part of that, but was banned anyways because MLB is allowed to make their own conclusions. Either way, it was well over a century ago, and Benny Koff definitely had an interesting career to say the least. Finally, we have reached the top. The #1 season in terms of fWAR with an unreal 10.1. Mike Trout's 2012 season. Trout had great numbers in his first few years in the minor leagues, especially for a guy who came out of high school at 17 years old. So in 2011, the Angels gave Trout a shot on the team, and 123 at-bats, just narrowly below the rookie eligibility limit, Trout didn't put up great numbers. Similarly to Judge, Trout managed to get some experience in the majors without sacrificing his rookie season. The next year, Trout started in the minors, but in 20 AAA games, he hit over 400. And the Angels had no choice but to call him up again. That's when Trout took the league by storm, and he just did everything at such an elite level. In 139 games, Trout led the American League in OPS plus and led the majors in stolen bases and runs scored. He slashed .326, .399, .564 for an OPS of .963. Did Trout have nearly as good hitting numbers as some of the other guys I talked about, like Judge or Pujols? No. But a .963 OPS is nothing to scoff at, and what Trout did to get such a high WAR was he did everything else at the highest level too. Trout put up 21 defensive runs saved in center field. Considering how difficult of a position center field is, that is absolutely insane and is easily his best year in the position. Urias has only been around since the early 2000s, but that's enough to place him 13th all time for the most defensive runs saved by someone playing that position. This is insane when you also remind yourself that he had an OPS of .963, but it doesn't end there. Remember when I brought up how Benny Koff's base running was a big factor in his success? He put up 75 steals and one of the best base running seasons of all time. Well, Trout had 14.3, which lands him with the 4th most base running runs in a single season. All of that gave Trout the one and only rookie season with a double-digit fWAR. And he missed 23 games. Trout didn't win the MVP that year, as Miguel Cabrera won the Triple Crown, but that can be an argument for another day. Trout just did everything at such a high level for an incredibly important position. He hit for contact, he hit for power, he walked, he was an unbelievable center fielder, and he was uncatchable on the base paths. A true 5-tool player in his first year. And let's not forget, there are so many players from the late 1800s and early 1900s on this list. I saw it as far back as I could go because no matter where in baseball history you look, a guy who debuted a little over a decade ago surpasses every single one of them. Like I said before, this list of players is not the end-all be-all or anything. I think there's always an argument that can be made for a lot of the guys on this list to be considered for the greatest rookie season, or even guys I wasn't able to get to. Before I even check the fWAR list, I think I'd still have to go with Trout's. To do everything at an elite level in your rookie year is just so mind-blowing to me. There are also so many other good rookie seasons too, that I really want to talk about, but I just didn't have the time to get to them. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing. I'd really appreciate it. Thanks for watching.